Hello everyone, welcome to Yak Cast 50. That has been recorded on August 22nd, 2011, and in the spirit of the Big 5-0, this cast is being dedicated to Hi-Rez, and I get to talk to a god-like figure in the MMO industry, Mr. Todd Harris. So without further delay, I will let the interview begin. Alright everyone, I have here Todd Harris from Hi-Rez Studios. Todd, thank you so much for being a guest on my show here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy to be here.
And first off, why don't you guys just tell my listeners kind of what you do and what your role is in Hi-Rez?
Sure. So my name's Todd Harris. I've been at Hi-Rez Studios since we started this studio in 2005, and very active in really all our titles. We're a small company, so I wear a lot of hats. But for Global Agenda, I served as the executive producer, and now that we have 3 games, I'm a little more focused externally on the marketing side of what we're doing across 3 games. So Global Agenda certainly was our firstborn, so very still concerned about it growing up and thriving, and also involved in the next 2 projects that we have going on, Tribes Ascend and Smite.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So, Little Agenda was the first game. And the one thing I did want to ask, I know in the first person shooters, there's a lot of military and whatnot shooters out there, and I was happy to see that. I mean, as far as I know, recently Global Agenda is one of the first kind of, I guess you could say, futuristic sci-fi shooters. Um, how did you guys come up with that concept or the idea
Um,
behind that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We call ourselves a gameplay first studio because we tend to start with the mechanics of the game and what we want the game rules to be, and then build the fiction and the lore and the IP around it. And that was definitely the case with Global Agenda. So we knew we wanted a team-based shooter, and we knew we wanted it to have this blend between shooter mechanics and some RPG mechanics with MMO elements. And so we really started with all that first, and then came up with a future setting and the fiction and the aesthetic of the game, and basically a sci-fi world where agents were competing against an NPC group, the Commonwealth. That would give us PvE content, but also having these skirmishes with one another that would support the PvP merc and even the AVA sort of battles. So we really just started with what type of game we wanted to make, and then picked the setting after that. And I do think it helps it stand out because there's not that many sci-fi titles either in the shooter world or the MMO world. Tabula Rasa certainly comes to mind for folks that come from an MMO background, but the setting definitely is part of what draws people to Global Agenda, I think.
Definitely. Funny you mentioned that. That's like one of the MMOs people keep telling me that was great, and I missed it.
Yeah, well, we had a few people here play it, not that many, but at least from the art style standpoint, and they were trying to do a similar blend of being a shooter and also having some stats that affect the gameplay. They made some different choices than we did. We ultimately, I think, went more in the shooter direction in terms of how we use cover and the importance of aiming and twitch compared to stats, but they were trying to do a similar thing.
Gotcha. And when you mentioned the engine, now I know sometimes the shooters people will use Unreal's engine or some other engine. Is this like your company's own proprietary engine, or did you use it off of any?
No, it's Unreal 3 based. We looked at a lot of engines and we chose Unreal 3 for Global Agenda, and we really tried to make a game that played to the strengths of the engine, which doesn't necessarily mean huge battles, but really good visuals and really good performance for kind of smaller team battles. And our team's gotten really good with Unreal 3. We think it's real powerful, and in fact, we're using that same engine for the 2 other projects we're working on, being Tribes Ascend and Smite. And even though those are quite different gameplay-wise and visually, we can use the expertise we already have in Unreal 3 for those games as well.
No, it's funny that you mentioned that because other shooters that I played that use that engine have that real tight control, and you may have heard me mention that on my cast, which is actually kind of funny because I can honestly say before playing Global Agenda got me back into playing first-person shooters, and that's one of the things that I liked was when you shoot and aim, the controls are spot on. And one of the things, also too, I guess I should mention, I also never got to play Tribes, so That's great. We were coming out with Tribes Ascension. So some questions that I may ask other people listening to this cast may say that I may already know. But the one thing I love that you guys did too, and you can tell me if you're doing this in Tribes Ascension, is that when you play a first-person shooter, you need to make it so you can't just infinitely shoot somebody, and keep kiting around your targets. And I loved how you guys did that. With energy, jetpacking takes energy, shooting takes energy. Um, is Tribes Ascension, is that going to play the same way, or does it have its own system?
Well, it has similar goals in that you don't want someone to be able to shoot infinitely, but the systems are definitely different. So Tribes Ascend is, first off, it's definitely a match-based online multiplayer shooter. No one's going to mistake it for something in the MMO category. So specific to GA players, if they like the fast combat and they like the idea of different classes and they like jetpacks, they'll find a lot to like in Tribes Ascend. But there aren't systems in Ascend like auction house, or the same level of itemization and or loot. None of those traditional MMO systems are in Ascend. Ascend is much more in the category of other modern shooters, in that you join a quick match, you play team versus team. It's very team based in the primary game mode, which is a capture the flag with bases and generators. And then after the match, like Global Agenda, you do gain experience and there is some leveling involved, but it's much more of a quick system and built around kind of prestige elements versus a lot of the stat elements. So again, people shouldn't think about Tribes Ascend as an MMO. It's much more just a match-based online shooter. And
Nice.
then,
Are you guys?
but
Let me to interrupt. Are you guys
oh yeah,
gonna have?
that's okay.
Are you guys gonna have deathmatch by any chance?
We're going to start with two modes in beta. The first is capture the flag with this idea of bases and generators, which Tribes players of the previous Tribes games will definitely recognize. That was one of the base game modes, and very team based, a lot of roles. The idea is that the generator on each team's base actually powers base functions. So the cool thing about Tribes is your base is not just a location on the map. It's not just a collection of geometry. It has all these systems and functions. It has base turrets that protect it. It has inventory stations that let you change your class. It has vehicle spawning stations. But if you take out the enemy team generator, then all those systems go down. And so you have the primary objective of capturing and returning the other team's flag, and you have a secondary enabling objective of this generator. So that's really cool gameplay, and
Oh,
that's
nice.
really the focus of the beta is that game. We also have another game mode called Rabbit that's it is entirely individual based. It's not actually deathmatch, but teams are competing to grab a flag, or players, sorry, are competing to grab a flag. Whoever gets the flag increments a ticket counter, and everybody is hostile to the flag carrier. They try to take him out and get the flag, and whoever has the most time with the flag during the match ends up winning. So it's a much more casual way to get in and just kind of learn the core mechanics if you don't feel like cooperating with your team at that point. So we're working on other game modes also, but those are the two we're starting with.
Nice. So Tribes Ascend, I guess, is more of your hardcore uh, PvP versus kind of in Global Agenda. You can do everything. You said the graphics, the PvE, and all of that.
That's right. Yeah, in Tribes Ascend, there's no bot support. You play a tutorial in order to learn movement, because movement is key to the old Tribes game and Tribes Ascend. It's one of the best things about the game is just how fun it is to move from point A to point B. You can jetpack, and even more so than Global Agenda, jetpacks are well integrated into the combat. There's a lot more midair battles in Tribes than you would find in Global Agenda. And then also the other big mechanic is skiing, which was actually the result of a bug in the original first Star Siege Tribes that players in the community discovered, where by tapping the jump key, they could kind of gain these incredible speeds. And over time, that's been more embraced, and in Tribes Ascend, it's a core mechanic. So if you hold down spacebar when you're going down a hill, you're removing gravity and your player builds up momentum, and you can actually stack that momentum. So through a series of catching hills just right and jetpacking and skiing, you just can gain crazy, crazy speeds. There's actually no upper cap on how fast players can go.
Oh, nice.
So in the tutorial, players will learn the mechanics of jetpacking and skiing, and that takes a little bit of time just to get that down, but it feels really fun. And then the core game type, though, you are always competing online against other players. There's no PvE, there's no bot support. It's other players and other teams that are really making the fun.
Nice. No, it's funny that you mentioned that because when I re-rolled a few ults in Global Agenda, I was happy to see you could start at level 5 and you could just do a few PV missions and you can get right into PvP. And actually, how you described Tribes is kind of how I play Global Agenda. I'll just usually dive in and I know I do the PvP part, do a quick battle, sometimes do some of the other things. So I'm glad to see that that's an extension and there'll be different audiences.
Yeah, that's right. If you're into the PvE, then those players will certainly continue to play Global Agenda. We've got a good set of new content coming in 1.5 actually for those players, and I think a lot of players will continue to play PvP in Global Agenda as well because we have additions coming there as well. But for players that are really into that head-to-head online play, then Tribes Ascend, many of them will probably give that a look.
Nice. Nice. Before we talk back, one thing that I wanted to say, and you may have heard me say in cast, is I love how y'all have done the payment model for the free to play, meaning you can try the game for free, and then for me, since I was able to get a 50% coupon code, actually get Spence, he bought the game initially when it came out, and then I just paid my $10, bought the game, and for me the funny thing, I feel I haven't had to spend any additional money since, and I feel just as competitive as anybody else. I don't feel left out, for getting loot and leveling and everything else.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Although, you can drop money on a booster if you want. It'd
Oh
be
yeah.
fine. It'd be fine. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah,
But
it's well. See, to me, I'm more a casual player, and if I had more time, then I would do that. And that's the other thing I like too. You guys added the agenda points. You have to have the level requirement. Didn't make them too cheap, too expensive. But if someone doesn't have the time, they just want to get the same gear that you could get from completing matches, from turning in tokens. I thought that was a good balance. In addition, the other thing too that I love what you all did is introducing all the flair because that makes your character look cooler. It doesn't imbalance the game anyway. Great way for you guys to make money. Great way for people to customize their character. And what I noticed with I forget the fashion store. I'm trying to with the girls.
yeah, Chloe's Burning
Yeah,
Fashion.
with the girls. What I love that you guys did, and you can tell me if you meant to do this intentionally, kind of like in real life, how new fashions come out and go. So if you want that hot item, it's like you better buy it now. You never know how often things are going to be in season. I thought that was kind of a cool idea.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for the feedback. That's definitely, there's free to play is I think it's going to be more and more prevalent. More games are going to try that model because I don't think it fits every game, but for many, many online games, I think it is a really good model for both the developer and for players as well. And we've obviously, it's worked well with GA. We try really hard to make it clear to players that we're not a pay for power sort of game. And a couple of years ago, myself and most of the people in the studio, I think, were pretty skeptical about free to play because the games that we had tried just seemed especially grindy or low production values, or literally some kid with money could pay for a magic bullet that takes me out. And so we just went a different direction where for us there's the idea of a time versus money play or trade out. So if you have more time to play and level up, and I have less time, but I still want to do it, an item like a booster lets me get there faster, but doesn't unbalance the game. And then, as you mentioned, certainly cosmetic items or self-expression items, it's great to see that players that enjoy the game, they want to express themselves by buying things for their character, and that's another way that they can do it. It doesn't unbalance at all the gameplay itself, and it's a way that all the people working on the game can have their salaries paid for, and we can keep making more content for you guys and for everyone who enjoys the game. So really that same principle of not allowing people to directly pay for power, that's worked well with GA, and the systems are a little different, but the But the philosophy is going to be the same for Tribes Ascend and even for Smite for that matter.
Excellent. Yeah, that's what I thought it was gonna be free to play. And I figured have some type of model where pay for some, I guess some type of equivalent of elite status, and then you get the basic package, and then you can get boosters and.
Yeah, our thoughts with both Tribes Ascend and Smite, just at a high level, are there will be some sort of booster in the game. The one of the main things that people buy that is a gameplay element will really be the different playable characters themselves. So for Tribes Ascend, that means classes or loadouts, and for Smite, similar to League of Legends, there will be some set in Smite that you can play for free, but if you want to unlock other ones, really more varied ones, not more powerful ones, then those will be a real money transaction. So in both those games, the idea is you can play for free, but you're limited as far as the classes in Tribes or the gods in Smite. And then as you play, just with gameplay hours, you'll be able to unlock other ones to try them out. But if you want to have permanent access to, say, the infiltrator class in Tribes, or to, say, a particular god in Smite, then those will be small microtransactions. So that's the basic idea. And for players that do want more of a single purchase item, we'll have various bundles that we sell. So if you just want to do a one-time purchase and get a pack of gods for Smite or classes for Tribes that'll keep you busy for quite a while, then we'll have those sort of options.
See, I like that because I feel that any game that's worth its weight in gold will offer some type of free trial or now free to play, and so you don't have to invest anything, and then whatever features you want, you can kind of pay as you go.
All right, we just need to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back.
Are you a guild leader thinking of starting your own guild? Or do you simply need a way to communicate with your fellows online? Check out www.typefrag.com.
Typefrag.com.
The most reliable and best ventrilo hosts in the business. Enter in promo code YakCast and get 25% off. If you're not using Ventrilo from Typefrag, you might as well be talking into a sweaty nutsack.
Sweaty nutsack.
Alrighty, we are now back.
As far as for Smite, what can you tell? I guess what I imagine is playing the gods kind of like a third-person FPS, but kind of melee. I don't know if I'm wrong on that, but that was kind of what I kind of suspected. Or
yeah, it's similar to that. I mean, for people that play Dota or Heroes of New Earth or League of Legends, the kind of the high-level macro game items will be very similar in that there's 2 teams with 5 gods on each side and some non-player character minions, and there's the idea of lanes, and basically each team is trying to take out the other team's base, and there are turrets along the way, and so there's the tactics of fighting another player, and then there's all these strategy elements of how you are laning with other of your players and how you're matching up, and just a lot of map awareness. And so those mechanics will be very, very similar. And the nice thing about that game type for many MMO players, since I know you do a lot of MMO, podcasting, basically that's the focus. Right. It kind of takes all the best elements of MMO PvP and puts them within one 45-minute session or so. So you start before a match, you pick your god. Say I'm going to play Zeus, and I've got the other 4 people on my team, and they choose unique gods, so there can't be the same god twice on a single team, but you might see the same god on the opposite team. And then you're playing this match, and during the match, you're killing NPCs, you're going up against other players, you're actually gaining levels right within that match. So you go through a whole character progression very quickly in the match. There's actually item buying throughout that match, so your character's getting more stronger, and you're choosing the right path of leveling up your spells and getting items. And then it culminates in some really kind of epic team battles, usually at the end. So it just distills the whole MMO PvP experience down in this thing that you can actually play and be done with in under an hour. So that's why a lot of us at the studio enjoy that game type. And but there's a lot of games trying to do that, so we wanted to be different. And one way is that you're moving your character with WASD, and your camera is right down there. Like with GA, you're in the battle. You're not looking at the map above the battle.
So are both of these games gonna be that kind of first person, third person view where you see a character, you have the reticle in the middle?
Yeah, so Tribes Ascend is usually played first person. So you have the reticule, and you see your feet if you look down, but mainly you see your hands holding your gun. It actually does have a third person view in Tribes Ascend, but the majority of players will play most roles in first person.
Oh,
And then
nice.
Smite is entirely third person camera, where the distance from the camera is kind of similar to Global Agenda. In Smite, you're not leaving the surface. It's played more on a plane. We decided we'd make one game that doesn't have jetpacks. So in Smite, that's the one. But you have all sorts of cool spells. So if you're a mirror, the frost giant, you're casting an ice wall. Again, rather than just seeing that as a small graphic, like in a real-time strategy view, you actually, as a player, will see the ice wall emerge, in Unreal 3, 3D, graphics, and actually trap you in the surface. And then as a player, you're manipulating the character with WASD and the mouse, and then some keys for your spell. So the mechanics will feel similar to Global Agenda players, but the art style is completely different. It's much more fantasy in terms of how it looks. It's all mythological gods and basically a lot of over-the-top spells
Oh,
versus.
nice. So it'll be the same way. You have your reticle. It's not going to be tab target. You still have to point to.
That's right.
Oh,
It's
good, good,
not
good.
tab targeting. There's some free form kind of skill shot sort of aiming, and there are some. There's a lot of like ground target sort of thing. If you think about that, where you might be casting a ground target in the future, or sorry, in advance of your character, and showing where you want to put some sort of AOE spell, for example. And so it's not lock on targeting, but you're targeting an area in that case.
Oh, nice. Is it going to have is it going to have 10 or less abilities still, kind of like Global Agenda and Tribes?
Yeah, that's right. It's not an overwhelming number of abilities.
Excellent.
It's smaller, and it's more about using those abilities at the right time, monitoring your cooldowns. Many of the characters, the abilities are complementary, so you put together combinations that work well, and then also how you choose to build up items for your character in the course of the match, because you can really build your characters different ways to have them, focus more on damage dealing or more on a tank sort of spec or support character, and you can actually play the same god multiple ways depending on how you choose the item build.
Is it going to be level or skill based or?
Well, in terms of the way the in-game character progresses, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's more level based,
Okay.
in that basically you're leveling up, both in the match and outside the match. Again, your god starts out at the beginning of the match very weak, takes multiple hits, to get rid of a minion, but then towards the end of the match, your god in that level, in that particular match, is much stronger, and you're melting minions all around you, which is part of the cool, satisfying part of the game,
Oh,
is that you
nice.
have all that leveling take place right within that 45 minutes.
Nice. So you've kind of taken kind of the best elements from Global Agenda, made into a medieval fantasy, and kind of still have the same tactics. Which I don't know if there's that many of those kind of games that exist. So that'll be.
Yeah, I mean, it really, players that are familiar with Defense of the Ancients, which is kind of the Dota acronym. So it was actually originally a mod, and there's a lot of players that are familiar with that game type. Valve's coming out with Dota 2 later this year, and there's a few other ones. And it's a very satisfying, fun game type. We've just given it the Hi-Rez or the Global Agenda third person perspective, and more action elements, and it's a lot of fun. We've got a lot of fun playing it here in the office, and we're working hard to try to get it to a beta state so more people can try it and give us feedback.
Oh, nice. And since you guys obviously own all three games, have you thought about doing something like, I don't know, in Global Agenda, if you unlock or do this, then maybe in some other games it'll unlock some cosmetic gear, or vice versa, or some type of deal. If you buy this, you can get this in games. I've seen that a lot on Steam. I don't know if you guys have thought about kind of rewarding loyal players or.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we want to do exactly things like that. So we want to make it easy for fans of one game to get in and try the other game, and we definitely want to reward the folks that have been loyal and supported, Global Agenda. And so we've got quite a few programs planned around that where, hopefully people will enjoy 2 or maybe even all 3 of those offerings. So
Nice. When, or if you can say, when the release dates for those are, or at least when you think you'll begin beta testing, or
yeah, the next milestones, well, for Tribes Ascend, so we actually just got back from QuakeCon where we showed that game publicly for the first time, and that was awesome. We're all
nice.
exhausted, but very happy about how that went. We had great feedback from players that were brand new to Tribes. A lot of people never heard of it. They said, "Hey, this looks like a new Halo game."
Yeah,
we had
I'm
that.
guilty. I'm guilty of that, to be honest. I really didn't hear much about it.
Yeah, well, that's
I didn't know
fine.
you all were the same company, so I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's veterans that are still very religiously playing one of the old Tribes games, very competitively, and we had good feedback from them. So anyway, that was a great showing, and we have a few more shows over the next 2 weeks, and then our plan is to begin closed beta for Tribes Ascend in September. So that's the next milestone that's right in front of us, and we want to be an open beta for Tribes by the end of the year, and then with Smite we are basically planning to start closed beta before the end of this calendar year. So
Gotcha. And so then, for after the beta, usually, I mean, you guys, does that usually take a couple months, or can you not say how long the betas will run before the final release comes out?
yeah, we don't actually have dates on that. So we want to run very large open betas for both Tribes Ascend and for Smite, and then it really depends. We look at those, we take those things seriously. It's we look at the feedback. It's more than simply a marketing event for us, and so really we look at how those things go and then determine the release date after that.
Excellent, because I always like it when people take their time. I like hearing it'll be ready when it's ready because no one wants anything rushed. So I'm very very happy to hear that.
Yeah, and with free to play, it is, there's a lot more freedom for both players and developers. Where the old model where you had to take a game to a retail store, everything's got to be entirely buttoned up, and that's kind of like your one and only chance. And with free to play, we can be in a state where we're in beta and we're making the game accessible and people can try it and give us feedback, and we can, we've got some time there to tweak the game and make it better. And some players may say, hey, it's not quite exactly where I want, where I think it needs to be yet, so I'll check it back, I'll check it out again in a couple months. But it kind of gives us the ability to get feedback and make the game better and better before release and even after release. We've really tried to do that with GA. In fact, the team's really happy today because we just in the past week we got 2 re-reviews of Global Agenda that were both really strong. We got from PC Gamer UK. They gave the game a second look and gave it an 80, which is a pretty respectable score. And then FPS Guru just today posted their first review and gave it a 90, which is exactly what we want to see.
Excellent.
100 would be even better. But I think they said this was seriously one of the best games we've ever played. So,
oh, nice. Nice.
So that obviously fires up our team, and it's nice because the team has been working hard on it since release, and sometimes publications don't give a game a second look, but as you know, with an MMO, it's not just what you release with, it's what you do after release. So it's nice when magazines and media outlets will look at it, a year plus after and see what the experience is like then.
Oh, definitely. No, I know we're running out of time. I just have to ask real quick. Can you, because I know the beta maps have been up for a test for a while on Global Agenda. Can you is there any immediate new content or new updates or anything that's maybe coming out in the next couple of weeks that you're able to talk about? Or
Sure. Well, I can let you know that the team's been hard at work on 1.5, which has been on our roadmap for a long time now. And one of the biggest asks that we heard from the community was for another open zone. So in addition to kind of the beta PvP maps, through our surveys, more than anything else, when we asked people what they wanted to see next in the game, what we heard was another open zone, because the first one kind of serves as a tutorial. It's really an extended tutorial, but then it falls off. And for For some players, that's fine. They can hop right into the instance play. But for other players, it feels a little abrupt. And so we really wanted to give an option for players that wanted a questing experience to be able to do that. And so that's really the next big deliverable that will be coming very, very soon. In fact, we are the team's working to have that be demonstratable on the PAX show floor in a couple weeks in Seattle, which is a huge gaming convention. So,
Oh, nice.
so that would be kind of the first preview. And the idea is, another area where you could leave the dome, go out and do quests, advance a story arc around the recursive colony faction, actually have some instanced missions, our equivalent of dungeons that take place along that story arc. And so that's some pretty cool new content that will be coming out very soon.
We'll definitely have to look forward to that. And then I kind of touched on it earlier, but just one last question, because I know in a lot of FPSs people ask, seem to request a future one a lot. Either in Global Agenda or Tribes Ascension, do you think there'll be any type of death match? Where it'll be PvP, kind of like once you're dead, and the goal is to eliminate all the players.
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't prototyped anything like that in Global Agenda, probably because all the balance was really around team-based games. So you obviously have people playing non-lethal specs like healing medic and that sort of thing.
Right.
But that's definitely something we can think about. I think we've also heard a lot of requests of people wanting something like VR Arena, but also with bots in there. Whenever our GMs hop in, which they'll do from time to time, and just freely spawn bots in VR Arena or even in Dome City, and people seem to like that. So
no, that would be nice.
Potentially an arena, deathmatch sort of style with some bots in there for flavor. I could see
that'd be awesome.
See that someday. So no commitments, but that sort of thing.
Sure.
And same with Tribes. With Tribes Ascend, we'll be working on additional game modes, and we wouldn't rule out team deathmatch. But really all of our games focus a lot on teamwork. I mean, it's team play in Smite, it's team play in Ascend, it's team play in GA. So that'll always be our core. And then deathmatch can be a more casual, fun sort of diversion, but that's definitely not our focus.
Gotcha. All right, well, excellent. Any, I guess, that pretty much sums it up for me. Anything else that you want to say, or?
No, appreciate the coverage on your podcast. I've heard you mention GA a couple times, so I'm glad that you're digging it. And so for anyone who's listening, from the GA community, just want to assure them, because I see on the forums that people are maybe afraid that all their favorite GA developers are getting sucked into another project. But we have 3 self-contained teams at this point, and the GA team is still very much in place and continues to work on new content, and people should see a lot coming soon with 1.5, and as long as the game continues to thrive, which it's doing, since we went free to play, we have more players joining and playing than ever before, and so as long as that keeps happening, we're excited to keep making new content and making that game the best it can be, even while we launch these 2 other ones.
Excellent.
All right,
cool.
Great.
Well, thank you so much again for your time.
Yeah, thanks for the questions.
Alrighty.
Okay, later.
And there you have it. That pretty much wraps things up. I can honestly say I fully enjoyed this interview. I am looking forward to hopefully be part of the beta for Tribes Ascension and Smite. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And don't worry, next show we'll be back with Gespenst, review, usual MMOs and games, just Hi-Rez, just really I just needed to show my support and love, and I've been down to talk to those guys for some time, and I feel privileged. Also, I had a blast talking to Todd, and it's great to know that there are real gamers in the industry that know what the people want, and not just a suit. I mean, Todd, you're awesome. And for those of you who have noticed, my site has been completely redesigned. iTunes is working again. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, subscribe to YouTube, etc. Just click on the follow me link in the upper right hand corner, or the links on my website. And thank you for listening.
Peace.